DRRC resumes on Monday with testimonies on the 1996 UDP clash with security forces at Denton Bridge, November 11, and Usman Korosis's killing. World leaders joined hundreds of veterans in Normandy to commemorate the largest combined land, air, and naval operation in history. Nigerian ambassador unanimously elected president of the United Nations General Assembly. These are the headlines. More coming on your way on the world today on iAfrica TV.
Hello viewers, you are watching the World Today News Bulletin. I am Fatmata Jaju. We now take a look at the first story. The Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission TRRC will resume hearings with the opening of its fifth three-week session on Monday, June 10th. The Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission is mandated to investigate and establish an impartial historical record of the nature, causes and extent of violations and abuses of human rights committed during the period of July 1994 to January 2017 and to consider the granting of reparation to victims and for connected matters. It started public hearings on 7 January 2019 and will proceed in chronological order, examining the most serious human rights violations that occurred from 1994 to 2017 during the rule of former President Yahya Jammeh. We have more in this report.
The TRRC will resume hearings with the opening of its fifth three-week session on Monday, June 10. During this session, the Commission will continue hearing testimonies from witnesses and victims of the 1996 UDP encounter with security forces at Denton Bridge and the November 11 and Korosise incidents. The Commission plans to hold its first institutional hearing on the media during this fifth session, which runs from Monday 10 June to Thursday, June 27. While the Commission was on break from hearings, the TRRC offices remained open and commissioners and staff continued to be engaged in work-related activities. Among other things, the Research and Investigations Unit on Violations is currently working with the Gambia Press Union to facilitate our first institutional hearing on the media while conducting research on certain public institutions as part of preparations for other institutional hearings. The Victim Support Unit also met with the Medical Board with a view to improving the victim pre-assessment processes. The unit is currently working closely with the Ministry of Health and the Turkish Embassy in a bid to secure overseas treatment for some of the first batch of victims seen by the board. These were victims from the April 2000 student demonstration and the April-May 2014 solo sending related incidents. Between April and May 2019, the TRRC spent over 100,000 on medical support to victims as part of our ongoing interim reparations program. Finally, also during the break and under the coordination of the Human Resource Unit, the TRRC identified pop-up offices in all regions across the country for the purposes of statement taking during the coming months. These offices will enable teams of statement takers from the Research and Investigations Unit to record statements and conduct interviews for eventual follow-up research, processing and submission to the legal unit for consideration.
TRRC tourism sitting on Monday, 10th June. President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump continued their commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the D-Day invasion of Nazi-occupied northern France by Allied forces. The president joined French President Emmanuel Macron in honoring the fallen on the very site in the invasion, the beaches of Normandy. The risky maneuver launched on June 6, 1944, saw more than 150,000 American, British and other Allied troops cross the English Channel to halt the advance of Adolf Hitler's war machine in northern France. It would cost the Allies some 10,000 men, but it would become the turning point of World War II. The leaders honored numerous living veterans of the day invasion, bestowing some with the French Legion of Honor Medal. Amadou Kante gives us more on that.
I am here to honor, just as we all are, the sacrifices of those who lost their lives, those who were injured, those who fought on to liberate Europe and liberate the world. But I want to just acknowledge one other thing. It wasn't just a military.
France President Emmanuel Macron and his U.S. counterpart Donald J. Trump have honored the war veterans for their tireless efforts that they made to free France from their enemies during the World War II on the anniversary of the Normandy landings that spearheaded the liberation of Nazi-occupied France. The events are taking place in northern France to remember the largest seaborne attacks in history. The day began with the sound of bagpipe, marking the exact moment Allied troops landed 75 years ago. Speaking at the event, France President Emmanuel Macron said that many did not have the chance to protest and they continue to protest in the south of England, where people are waiting. The soldiers have drawn in the water for their bravery and loyalty to their nations. We will not forget these soldiers from America, England, Canada and other Western countries, those who fought for us in order to get our freedom from the enemies on the 6th June 1944. He added that during the intervention of American soldiers and other Allied forces, Germany and Japan were surrendered, and that brings the formation of the United Nations in order to unite the Western countries.
We know what we owe to you veterans, our freedom. On behalf of my nation, I just want to say thank you.
Donald J. Trump, the U.S. president, has also recommended the efforts of the war veterans during the World War II. This is the category of our nations because when this war took place, we were young at the time, so these soldiers risked their lives to liberate France from their enemies in the Asia coastline.
Today, America embraces the French people and thanks you for honoring our beloved dead. Thank you.
President Trump used the opportunity to recommend the Canadian and British soldiers for risking their lives during the war, and also the French commanders will be continued to be remembered and their names will be in the history books of France.
As part of commemorations of the 75th anniversary, President Trump and First Lady Melania joined President Macron to honor the fallen and living veterans. Gambia's President Adama Barrow has assured Muslim elders that he will not interfere in the judiciary matter. Speaking after the Eid congregational prayers in Banjul, when he received Muslim elders who, in maintaining a decades-long tradition, paid a courtesy call on the head of state to mark the end of the Ramadan, President Barrow affirmed his government's commitment in establishing and maintaining an independent judiciary system. Amadou Kante gives us more.
The candidates in their various works that is in line with our culture and the laws of the country. The ministers are here and they have heard you, and the Secretary General has taken note, and we will discuss about your challenges as well. All we want is an independent justice in this country, as we all rely on the courts, be it the president or anyone else. If we have a case, we go there. If you can recall, during the impasse with former President Yahya Jammeh, with all his powers, the only option he had to fight for his case was the court, because there was no other place for him. That is why whatever someone does, let it be right, as you can make laws that suit you for targeting others, but it can fall back on you someday. There was a time when he arrested some of our UDP people, and we needed the Supreme Court to interpret something, and it never happened because there was no one at the court, as not anybody thought he would need the Supreme Court at the time, and when he do, it was never possible because he is the one who planned it, and that is why whatever you do, let it be right. When the Constitutional Review Commission came here, I told them to write an all-inclusive constitution for the country to have everyone included in the process, as no one should be excluded. This is for the country and not for Adama Barrow. But if you listen to some people's views, they are sentimental by targeting President Barrow or set of group of people just to exclude them and put in themselves. It is only Allah who can put you in, but not yourself. So let's come together and discuss to design the constitution that is good for the nation, in a bid to have a constitution that secures and protects the president, the imam, and everyone else.
On governance matters, President Barrow affirmed that he has nothing personal against anyone. Whatever action he takes is based on national interest and nothing personal. He called on Gambians to come together and move the country on the desired path.
ñu ngi baalu ñëpp nag si weeri koor bi ñun baalal nañ ñëpp bëgg na ñëpp baalal ñu tam.
We seek forgiveness from everybody as we have forgiven everyone for the holy month of Ramadan. This position is a responsibility given to you by Allah to secure the people and for the good of the country. We don't have anything personal against anybody, and we are doing our work, and the work I'm doing is between me and God. If I feel at any position that someone else would do better, at any time I will make the change for the interest of the nation. Removing you from a post doesn't mean I don't like you, but it's what the job requires I would do. And if anyone is angry because of that, then you are just angry with me, but I'm doing my responsibilities.
The African Union has suspended Sudan's participation in its activities. This came shortly after a meeting of the African Union Peace and Security Council earlier on Thursday. At the meeting, Musa Faki Mohamed, chairman of the AU Commission, presented his report on Sudan. During confrontation over the last couple of days between the military and the Sudanese holding sit-ins, more than 100 people were killed in the capital Khartoum and other major cities. Sudan has remained in turmoil since April 11 when the military establishment announced the removal of President Omar al-Bashir after months of popular protests against his 30-year rule. The United Nations General Assembly elected Nigerian Ambassador Tijani Mohamed Bandi to preside its upcoming session. Agenda 2030, with focus on peace and security, poverty, education, climate action, and inclusion, are among the major priorities of his presidency. Addressing the General Assembly, the newly elected President Tijani Mohamed Bandi said that the international community must continue to invest in sustaining peace and conflict prevention. Adding, as the United Nations has not met the expectations of its founding fathers in terms of preventing many violent conflicts and mass atrocities. Before serving as Nigeria's permanent representative to the UN, Tijani Mohamed Bandi served as the Vice President of the General Assembly during the 71st session and remains active in several fora.
Republic of Nigeria for nominating me for this esteemed position, to the African Group for endorsing my candidacy, and to all member states for extending their priceless support. I congratulate President Espinosa for her tireless efforts to guide our work through the current session, and thank the Secretary General for his leadership at this critical moment for the United Nations. Dear colleagues, as I announced in my vision statement and during the interactive dialogue on 13th May, the implementation of existing mandates and the 2030 Agenda, with particular focus on peace and security, poverty eradication, zero hunger, quality education, climate action and inclusion will constitute the major priority of my presidency. Accordingly, the higher-level political forum to be convened during the 74th session of the General Assembly, the Secretary-General Climate Summit in September, the higher-level events on universal health coverage, financing for development, and the Samoa Pathway, the Second Ocean Conference in Lisbon, the commemoration of Beijing Plus 25, and all other important meetings during the 74th session provide major opportunities to promote the implementation of our goals and targets, and we must seize each of those opportunities to galvanize political momentum and action at the highest level. I'm committed to promoting partnerships that are needed from all stakeholders to achieve our objectives, and ultimately ensure that we do our best to ensure peace and prosperity, particularly for the most vulnerable. Madam President, we must continue to invest in sustaining peace and conflict prevention, given that our organization strives to, quote-unquote, save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. As the United Nations has not met the expectations of its founding fathers in terms of preventing many violent conflicts and mass atrocities, we have to assume collective responsibility to make the world a better, safer, and more peaceful one. The promotion of human rights and the empowerment of women and youth deserve special attention, and I will be devoted to the promotion of gender parity throughout the whole UN system, starting from my own office. Your Excellencies, will commemorate the 75th anniversary of the creation of the United Nations next year. This presents a unique opportunity for us to reduce the trust deficit between nations, as we all share the same aspirations and we have no choice but to work together. If we will achieve the visions of our founding fathers, we must ensure that indifference and cynicism do not creep into our organization. The General Assembly must play its role in bridging the gaps and promoting collective action to address all international issues that deserve attention, with close coordination and collaboration with the Secretary General, Security Council, and ECOSOC. Excellencies, in the coming weeks and during my presidency, I'll count on the support and solidarity of all member states, as well as the Secretariat. I shall explore the robust potential of the convening platform of the Office of the President of the General Assembly and use its advocacy tools to promote multilateral approach to finding workable solutions to the issues confronting us. I will work with member states on streamlining our work and improving the way we do business at the UN. As most of us have drawn attention to the growing number of events, with the attendant risk of undermining genuine dialogue and overstretching delegations, I'll work with you all on appropriate solutions, as I believe we must make the United Nations more efficient, effective, and accountable to the people we serve. Finally, Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to reiterate that as President of the 74th session of the General Assembly, openness, inclusivity, and transparency will guide all actions of the Office of the President of the General Assembly. I thank you for your kind attention.
That was Tijani Mohamed Bandi, Nigerian ambassador newly elected to preside over UN General Assembly upcoming session. Coming up after the break, women from Africa's 54 countries are among more than 8,000 delegates attending the Women Deliver 2019 conference in Vancouver, Canada, demanding their rights. Welcome back. We remind you that you are watching the World Today News Bulletin. Let's now take a look at the remaining stories. A remembrance ceremony to mark the 75 years since the Allied invasion of Normandy was held at the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. yesterday. Volunteers read the names of soldiers and officers who died during the operation and are buried at Normandy American Cemetery in France. Speaking at the ceremony, the U.S. Senator for Virginia, Tom Kaine, said it wasn't just a military battle. It wasn't just an effort to defeat the horrible forces of fascism. The invasion that day was just the very fact of the invasion created tremendous amount of hope in people who have lived under oppression and had been waiting for that day.
I am here to honor, just as we all are, the sacrifices of those who lost their lives, those who were injured, those who fought on to liberate Europe and liberate the world. But I want to just acknowledge one other thing. It wasn't just a military battle. It wasn't just the effort to defeat the horrible forces of fascism. The invasion that day, just the very fact of the invasion, created a tremendous amount of hope in people who had lived under oppression in the years and had been waiting for that day.
The largest amphibious assault in history, the Battle of Normandy, is a totem of how free nations can come together at a decisive time and place the entirety of their shared resources, treasure, knowledge, and men toward a common mission. The invasion forged partnerships and reinforced crucial bonds that remain to this day. Today, over 200,000 U.S. troops are stationed around the world with our allies in support of our collective self-defense. Following September 11th terrorist attacks on our nation, our European allies, those who fought along with us on the beaches of Normandy, joined us again in the war on terror. The willingness of U.S. and Europe to stand together to defend democracy and freedom will never waver.
In France, World War II veterans gathered at the Normandy American Cemetery and Memorial in Colleville-sur-Mer on Wednesday amid the commemorations of the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings. A military flypast took over the skies in honor of the Normandy landings, and paratroopers could be seen descending upon the coast. Veterans could be seen looking over the rows of white crosses that overlook the Omaha beach. One of them, Katie Robbins, said, "After 75 years old, I had the chance to come back here. How lucky to get to do that." Another World War II veteran, Book Price, expressed his excitement at knowing that we did something well at one time, and said that this third time trip was Normandy Cemetery, as first trip was the government. It was the government that sent him there. Nearly 4,500 U.S. soldiers and officers were killed during the first day of landings in Normandy in 1944. Women from Africa's 54 countries are among more than 8,000 delegates attending the Women Deliver 2019 conference in Vancouver, Canada, demanding their rights. The Women Deliver 2019 conference is underway in Vancouver, Canada, and is the world's largest conference on gender equality and the health rights and well-being of girls and women in the 21st century. It serves as a catalyst for advocates who are working to achieve a more active agenda for equal world. More than 8,000 world leaders, influencers, and advocates, academics, activists, and journalists arrive in Vancouver with the drive to accelerate progress for girls and women everywhere.
Women from Africa's 54 countries are among more than 8,000 delegates attending the Women Deliver 2019 conference in Vancouver, Canada, demanding their rights. Led by President Sahle-Work Zewde, the first woman to lead Ethiopia, they spoke countless times about the importance of gender equity among other rights of girls and women at the summit. Miriam Farah. We want the number of literate Somalian women to rise from 24% as per figures from the United Nations Children's Fund to 50% and above. She called on Kenya to emulate by naming a new cabinet in which half of its ministers are women. Kind of violence against women to end, be it at home or outside the home. Delegates from most African nations also spoke on women's political participation in their countries as well as harmful cultural practices. President Kenyatta, who was among the world's leaders present, launched the Nairobi call to action on the education of girls and women in conflict and post-conflict situations in Africa. The President of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, and Ethiopian President Zewde also supported the call. The conference began Monday and ends Thursday.
That was the Women Deliver 2019 conference in Canada. Before we go, let's take a look at sports. FIFA has confirmed that the Confederation of African Football President Ahmed is being questioned by authorities in France. A statement from football's world governing body says it is in relation to allegations related to his mandate while president of CAF. It added that FIFA is unaware of the details surrounding this investigation and is therefore not in any position to make any comment on it specifically. Ahmed has been president of the Confederation of African Football President since replacing Issa Hayatou in March 2017. Ahmed, a former Malagasy cabinet minister, had been reported last month to FIFA's Ethics Committee for alleged corruption and sexual harassment by CAF General Secretary Ahmed Fahmy, who was then fired. His arrest by the Central Office for the Fight Against Corruption and Financial and Tax Offences is reportedly in connection with a contract that CAF terminated with German equipment manufacturer Puma in favor of Technical Steel. Ahmed is accused of having influenced this decision, standing to be rewarded with up to $830. He has denied the allegations, saying all decisions were taken in a collective and transparent manner, Ahmed said in mid-April. The first ever FIFA Women's Football Convention kicked off in Paris on Thursday with a who's who of football's elite coming together to discuss the key issues facing the development and empowerment of women in the sport. In her opening statement, the first ever female Secretary General in 112 years of FIFA history, Fatima Samora, said the agenda for this convention, saying that I am drawing from the energy of the Me Too movement. I want this convention. I want women's football. I want the Women's World Cup to be a safe space for girls and women where your voice can be heard and where you can feel empowered. The discussion panel also saw the likes of FIFA legends such as Veronica Burkett-Giardens and Michael Essien, who turned up to motivate and show their support to women's football. The two-day Women's Football Convention will conclude on Friday and coincides with the start of the FIFA 2019 Women's World Cup set to be played in France. Well, viewers, that's all we have for you on the World Today News Bulletin. For more on these and other stories, kindly log on to our website, iAfrica.tv. I am Fatma Tejaju. Bye for now.